27%. 27% of you are not getting a good education. 27 of you will end up with a low-paying job. And this is me theoretically speaking, but isn't it alarming that out of every 100 people, 27 are not getting the education they deserve, or not even being educated at all? I think it is. And I've come here not only to talk about this unfairness, but more specifically about the migrant children in China and about their poor education. I'm just going to start by saying that helping those less fortunate than us is always so great, and as big or as small as the help might be, everything counts. And that's one of the most important things to remember. What you take away from this talk at the end all depends on you. But as a speaker, I hope I've changed your opinions about migrant children and how it's actually more of an issue than it seems. When I was in grade 5, I never actually encountered the hardships that I knew a lot of people had to deal with every day. And personally, I felt lucky because I've lived in a lot of developing countries and have seen firsthand what these people in poverty are experiencing every day. And I've always felt a little bit helpless because I could never give them the aid that they needed. So I continued living my life without taking any action towards this until I was about 10 years old. And as part of the curriculum, grade 5 students are introduced to a community and service project. This is a 3-month-long process of choosing a topic, researching about it, taking action, and presenting. I started my project off with absolutely no idea what to choose. And most of my peers were facing the same problem. After researching into different topics, I found that I was interested in helping people. Why help cats and dogs when your own species was suffering? I used to think. And I knew I'd found my passion, helping people in literally any way possible. For example, donating clothes and money to orphanages, or maybe going to places and interacting with the children, or even just being involved in small service activities like the Small Change Appeal. Although I wanted the world to change, I knew that if I wanted to help, I'd have to start small. I decided to look into the 5 basic human needs: food, water, shelter, clothing, and education. Living in China, I decided to look into something in our local community. I remember we were actually at a dinner party at one of my parents' friends' houses, and I started to eavesdrop on a specific conversation I'd never heard about before, about a topic I'd never heard about before: migrant children. The next day in school, I started researching into this issue of migrant children, and learning about their lack of education concerned me. I told my teacher that I was interested in this topic, and she found 3 other girls who joined me. We then busied ourselves in finding out everything we could about these children. In Beijing, most migrant families come from rural villages around China, and they come to Beijing in search of a better paying job, but normally end up working in jobs including physical labor. Although the labor jobs normally pay more than what they would earn in their own village, they don't earn enough to send their children to private schools. And the problem for the children is that they can't go to normal public schools because they're not Beijing citizens. Therefore, they must go to poorly equipped illegal schools. And even then, most of them must stop school at 6th grade or 8th grade in order to support their parents both financially and in practical ways. For example, the child might take care of their siblings or do chores around the house. And in addition to this, they'll also lower their parents' expenses because they'll no longer have to pay for their school fees. During the time of our exhibition, being the naive 5th graders that we were, we decided to pay a visit to the Yuying migrant school. in order to broaden our knowledge of the children's educational environment. During our visit, we realized that most of these kids were actually very bright and intelligent, and we decided that we were going to do whatever we could to help these kids get the education they deserved, in any small way we could. One of the things they didn't have was resources, and we thought it would be a good idea to give them some money for big equipment, such as playground facilities, in order to improve their learning environment. And I actually remember getting an anonymous donation of 2,000 yuan that we then used for the playground equipment. And this symbolized the school's support towards our project. We also had donation boxes full of pencils, erasers, and notebooks. And we separated all the donations equally for every child that attended this school. I had so much fun working with both of my peers and getting inspired by these kids. As I mentioned previously, migrant children don't have the access to get education. Personally, I don't think this is fair due to various reasons. One of the reasons is that it's not ethical, because every kid deserves the right to a good education, and their success depends on the opportunities given to them. Migrant children will often have to leave school at an early age, as I've mentioned before, purely to the fact that their parents can't afford the expenses. This is incredibly unfair to the kid because they don't get their basic education. Another reason this is not good enough for these kids is because if they don't get a good education, they'll end up living in Beijing for the rest of their lives. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but unless they have a moderate financial status, they won't have a pleasant life here. And this is actually an example of the poverty cycle, because then their children will have to go through the same process. Having a job is the only way to earn money and get out of this poverty cycle. And to have a good job, you must first have a good education. So as you can see, everything comes back to one of the 5 basic needs. And in this case, it's education. Milestones are not only about the past, but also about our future. And I realized that for the first time in my life, I could have an impact on someone successfully, so close to home. And the difference doesn't have to be that big. And this changed my whole view on the idea of community service. It showed that anyone can make a difference. I know this whole idea seems a bit cheesy, but I really did learn something that year. Now that I'm in 8th grade, I started discovering different ways that I could help these children, and I plan on joining a community and service project in high school that will help people around the world get their basic necessities. My milestone changed my point of view of how much I cared about other people's well-being. And to finish off my talk, I would like to play a song that I studied in my music class this year. And I feel it perfectly sums up my passion for helping those less fortunate. As you'll hear, the song is about carelessness and selfishness. It describes how lucky we are. And you can tell from the chorus, "It's just another day for you and me in paradise," that this song implies that people with higher privileges don't help those with less. This song is thought-provoking for me, but when I think of WAB, I find that it's not true of all people, because most of us here are actually very caring, and we do small things to help the community, whether it's just helping an old person cross the street, or smiling at those around us and passing off good vibes.